Hello, everyone. This is lesson 11, a pretty key lesson. It's a lesson in which our woman eats the fruit. Let's start with Genesis. This section starts with, "The snake was more crafty than any living thing of the field, which being gods had made. The snake said to the woman, indeed the God said, you can eat of the trees of the garden." Now we have to take this very slow. It starts off with the snake. We've got a talking snake. That tells us we've got an allegory. This isn't a historical text. We're going to find out that the snake was more crafty than any other living thing of the field. A field is a zone of influence. We have a field within and a field outside. When you walk into a room and you're full of joy, your field will be felt by everybody in the room. And within you, your whole body feels that field. So field, think of it as a zone. A living thing of the field, we all have animals. In wisdom literature, we all have animals living within us. For instance, the lion within us is our courage. The ox is our stubbornness. The snake is our desire to live the dark side. It's the desire, the snake tells us that it is wonderful to be guarded love. It is wonderful to know with the tree of the knowledge of bad and good. And the snake is continually showing us how pleasurable that will be. So the snake is very crafty. And also notice when we go through here, the snake never lies. So the snake was more crafty than any living thing of the field. More crafty than any other animal within us, which being gods had made. The snake said to the woman, now remember, he's going to the person, the side of us, that sees everything as perfect, just the way it is. It's the one who loves unconditionally. It's the side who can love unconditionally, that nourishes us. So the snake said to the woman, indeed, the God said, you can eat of the trees of the garden. Now notice how crafty he is. He hasn't lied. They can eat of either tree. They can eat the fruit of either tree. Remember, the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of life is oneness. It's the soul experience. It's the peak experience. The fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and bad, if we lead with it, if that is in front of us, it leads to division. When you see another person is bad, you feel divided from them. When you feel another person is good, you feel close, but you're not really as close as you would be if you knew them with the tree of life, in which you'd feel oneness with them. So the fruit of when we lead with the tree of the knowledge of good and bad, the fruit is destructive. It is, we learned, we die psychologically and spiritually. Now let's look at the next passage from that story. Let's see how the woman handles the snake, how the feminine handles the snake. The woman said to the snake, of the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden. Okay, in the middle of us, the core of us, is the tree of the knowledge of good, of life. Of the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden, we may eat. That's true. But of the fruit of the tree that is not in the middle of the garden, that is not in the front, the God said, you shall not eat from it, or you will die. Perfectly true. If we know anything, primarily as good or bad without seeing it as perfect just the way it is, we will die. It leads to worry, it leads to regret, depression, out-of-body excitement. When we're on a roller coaster of emotions, we're knowing things with the tree of the knowledge of good and bad, primarily. Now we're going to read further. The snake said to the woman, "You will not die and die, for the gods know that on the day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be gods, knowing good and bad." Now this is very tricky. And it has caused, books have been written about this passage right here. The snake said to the woman, "You will not die and die, for the gods know that on the day," a day is a moment of open eyes, clear choice. So when you are making conscious decisions, that on the day you eat from it, you choose to enjoy division, the death experience, that on the day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened. The word day means time, a moment of clear choice. For on the day you eat from it, on the day you eat division, death, the dark experience, your eyes will be opened. To have opened eyes means to have free choice. So right now, the person in the Garden of Eden does not have free choice. They have not experienced the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. They've only been exposed to the enjoyment of the tree of the knowledge of life. They know oneness, they know fulfillment, they're in a mystical experience, they're in the peak experience, they're in the vacation experience, they're in the I-thou experience that we talked about. That's all they know. They don't know division. They don't know anxiety and worry. They don't know separation from other people. They're living in oneness. So right now they don't have free choice. So he's saying that on the day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be gods, knowing good and bad. So once they eat division and death and darkness, they will be like gods with free choice. Okay, let me give you an example. I can remember when I was a small child, for the first time, maybe it was the first time, I don't know, but it was one that I remember strongly. I lied to my parents in a serious way. Apparently, I had not lied like that before, because when I did that, I felt so different inside. I felt separate from them. I felt like I was hurting them. I did not feel like I was myself. I felt guilty. So in that moment, when perhaps for the first time I did something seriously wrong, my eyes are opened. I had free choice. From then on, I could choose to lie or not lie. Before that, I didn't know the consequences of lying. So I didn't have free choice. But after that, I did, and then I was like gods, knowing good and bad. Now let's look at the next passage from Genesis. When the woman saw the tree and that it was good for food, when the woman with eyes that sees perfection saw that she could learn, that's what food does, it teaches us, learn from knowing good and bad, that it was compelling to the eyes, that there was something about seeing other people as good and bad that was enjoyable and compelling. and a tree to be desired for wisdom. You can't be wise, you can't be a Joan of Arc without knowing good and bad. So she saw that to be wise, you must know good and bad. So when she saw all of that, she took the fruit and ate it. Okay, she saw the perfection in the fruit and of darkness and ate it. And she gave it also to her man side, and he ate it. So now they were like me, who had lied. They have taken in the dark experience. Let's read the next passage. After they ate the fruit, the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew their nakedness. So after they experienced the dark experience, they had free choice, and they felt naked. I think that we've got to identify with that experience. When we've done something that has been harmful to ourselves and to others, and we have a conscience, all of a sudden we feel naked. We feel exposed, especially if somebody else notices that. Let me give you an example. Once I was asking a young man who was just learning to sell tires in his father's shop a question, and I ended up manipulating him to give me a lower price for the tire based on false information. Later he came back to me and said, "You lied to me. I trusted you." At that moment, I felt very naked and very dirty. Here was a young man learning to his business. Here was a young man for the first time exposed to an adult who could manipulate him. Now at that point, I was absolutely naked in the sense that I was vulnerable. Fortunately, I looked down and looked up and apologized and paid him the right price. I took care of it. Now, that's what it means to be naked, is to be out in the open and to be aware that you have eaten the dark fruit and that you can either cover it up or you can continue. That's the end of the lesson, but I'd like to ask you as an exercise to think of a time when you began to enjoy the dark experience. It could be the dark sexual experience. That's common for people. You have sex without love, just for the enjoyment of the sex. And it feels good at the time, but later you feel like you betrayed yourself. Or you manipulated someone like I manipulated that little boy. Think of a time when you've done that and identify what you normally do with your nakedness. Do you cover it up? Do you start eating? Do you start distracting yourself from it? Or do you own it? Do you actually talk to another person about it? Do you resolve to change your life? But when we feel naked, we've made an open choice, just like this person did. This man and this woman, they made a choice. And from that choice, and from experiencing that nakedness, we choose our life. Once you've done that, now we can ask ourselves, this person has now free choice. They have not sinned. Notice they haven't sinned. They ate the fruit and they did not sin. You have to have free choice to sin. So Paul was wrong. All the theologians are wrong when they say that there was two people in the garden. There wasn't two people, there's one. And that they sinned when they ate the fruit. They didn't. They didn't have free choice, so they couldn't have sinned. Now they've got free choice. Now what are they going to do with it? All right. That's what we're going to be taking in the next lesson. Thank you, and down below, put your comments and your questions. If you like this lesson, please click on like. If you want an overview of what we're doing, go to the website www.7771.org and read the overview. You should probably be reading that often because it continually tells you how the way of the soul differs from the way of the mind. Thank you, and I look forward to talking to you at the next lesson.